Hey guys, welcome to this week's tutorial. We're going to be working on some of these black Isomalt crystal shards. Here I've got some that I only made half an hour ago. You can see I've got lots of different shapes and sizes going on, and they're resting on this handy little silicone mat, which I highly suggest grabbing if you're going to be doing a bit of Isomalt work. You'll also need some moulds. Here I've got a variety of different ones. Please excuse the stained hands from the previous crystals, but you can get some of these long, thin ones. These all came as part of the same brand and set, and they have different widths and little platforms for them to stand on level. And then I have this type, which have these little handles to hold and are a fully formed block. You just want to have a variety of different shapes and sizes to create your own clusters. I've also got some silicone cupcake cases. Whatever you do, do not attempt to melt any Isomalt in a plastic bowl. You will 100% melt your bowl. But these silicone cases are great, especially in the star shapes, because you can create a little pouring spout. And they usually come in a pack of 5, so you can have several colours on the go. Then there's the Isomalt itself. This is ready tempered by Squire's Kitchen, and I buy the colourless ones. Although you can buy coloured, they're so easy to colour yourself, and I like having the freedom of creating different shades by using the colourless base. So here is my little silicone star that I've already melted some Isomalt in previously, and you can see it is now fully set and followed all the contours of the case. This is super easily remelted back down in the microwave. I'm just going to add a few more inside and pop it in the microwave for literally 25 seconds. That is how quick this stuff melts. Whilst that's in there, I'm just going to show you the black colouring I'm using. It's just regular gel colour, and I'm using a cocktail stick to stir it in. One thing not on this equipment list, but you're going to 100% need, is a good pair of gloves. Isomalt is not something to be messed with, and certainly not recommended for children. This will burn your fingers if you get it on yourself. It's not very often I use Isomalt, therefore I don't have any gloves for this video. I'm just being super careful. Any container you're melting it in as well is going to get very, very hot. So you can see the Isomalt is bubbling away from just 25 seconds, and I'm adding a little squirt of the gel and stirring it in with a cocktail stick. Once you have it stirred all together, put your cocktail stick on the silicone mat so it's easily removed afterwards. I'm then going to pinch 2 of the star points together so it creates this little pouring point at the other end. Again, I cannot stress how hot this Isomalt is. Be very, very careful. I'm just slowly dribbling this down into my mould, which itself will also get very hot. So try to only touch it at the base to move it out of your way. And that's it. Literally 25 seconds in the microwave, pop in the gel and continue on. I'm making mostly black crystals for my cake, but I'm going to show you in a second some slightly smokier versions. So here I've just placed in colourless ones and not coloured it with gel yet, and you can see it's already picked some of the black that was left over in the case, which is why it's a grey colour. And I'm just tipping that into some of my moulds. I'm then going to get my cocktail stick and just take some of the black colouring on the tip and swirl it inside the grey colour. This creates a little smoky swirl inside of the crystals, which can make some really cool effects infusing different colours. I don't know if you can just see the swirling inside this one. Now, small moulds like this will literally take 15 minutes to set. You'll know when it's ready because your mould will be cooler to the touch, and you can also press a cocktail stick against the Isomalt and it'll feel rock hard. It will easily just pop out of the mould as if it was resin. This is what the crystal will look like, and you'll notice if I try to shine it in the right light, the surface has lots of little tiny bubbles and holes in it. This will be far more visible on any sort of clearer or light coloured crystal. To get rid of these, you can heat the surface with a small creme brulee torch, which will melt all those bubbles away, but the problem is, as you can see with this one, it also melts away the sharp edges from your crystal. So this crystal is nowhere near as defined along those edges as the first one. Now luckily I'm working with black crystals where the holes are not quite as noticeable, and I actually prefer to keep them because the cake I'm working on is red and it will give it a hot, steamy vibe as if the crystals have condensation on them. So it works quite well if you're creating a cold or hot effect. I'm quite happy to leave these crystals as they are. If you're using clear ones and you want to get rid of the bubbles, you can heat a knife or a metal scraper with the torch, run it across the surface to get rid of the bubbles, and it'll also try to maintain the sharp edges where possible. Here you can see some of the slightly clearer crystals with a black food colouring swirled inside. Some of these crystal moulds I didn't fully fill as I was starting to run out of the melted batch. I've made a few different ones in varying shades of greys and solid blacks. Little ones like this also come in handy for filling gaps and spaces. Now that they're all out, you're going to need to protect them with a glaze spray. You'll notice that Isomalt crystals will feel a little bit sticky, so spraying them with this glaze spray will give them a little barrier against humidity and melting. It also makes them much less sticky once it's dry. Here I have all the crystals I've made so far on the mat and on the board, and I used one full bag of Isomalt and a half a bag. Hopefully it will give you some sort of idea of how many bags you might need for your project. Now I'm ready to assemble. You can of course make your shards by melting Isomalt on your silicone mat and holding some of the shards in as it sets to create a standalone crystal display. But as I want full control of where my shards go on the tiers, I'm going to be using blobs of black sugar paste so I know exactly what angle the crystals will stick out and where. I'm just dampening my sugar paste where I'm placing my sugar paste blob, and then I'm taking some of my crystals and sticking them down inside it. Just push the ball of paste back around the base of the crystal to hold it. Then just keep going, taking some smaller and bigger crystals where you want them and smaller ones around the base, and then dampening the sugar paste, ready for my little rocks. These little rock sugar pieces come in super handy. This is what they look like out of the bag, and they're a perfect size to create the base of the shards. And you'll just simply stick them on with piping gel. That's my first one done, and I'm moving on to the next tier. The great thing about using the sugar paste base instead of making one from Isomalt is, like here, when I want to change my mind and make it a little bit bigger, I can just add another blob of sugar paste to add more shards to. Once you're happy with the shape, you're going to go in with some black paint to paint those small sugar rocks. If you use black paint straight from the bottle, it still gives a really good black rock effect, but if you water it down just a little to make it more of a wash, you'll get a slightly more translucent greyish black crystals, which can add a lot of interest. And that's it! How super easy was that? It makes a really quick decoration, 25 seconds to melt and only 15 minutes to set. And then pop them together in some sugar paste, which you can't even see here now that it's covered in small rocks, and I just think it looks really effective. As mentioned, if you are using clear, you will have that extra faff of eliminating those bubbles to make it less cloudy. But for black crystals, it works a treat. One thing to note is, although these are completely edible, it's not recommended you eat much. They do have a laxative effect, which not many people are aware of. Just ask diabetics and their sugar-free sweets. They'll know what you mean. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and a comment, and I'll see you again next week. Bye guys.